Welcome to Real Estate Coach Uncensored on Inman News, where you'll find the best practices, tools, and technology tips to help you grow your real estate business. Here are your hosts, Bernice Ross and Greg McDaniel.
Welcome. I'm Bernice Ross, the CEO and President of Brokerage Up and RealestateCoach.com.
And my name is Greg McDaniel. I'm the co-host and co-founder of the wildly famous and popular podcast, Real Estate Uncensored.
And today's session, we're going to be talking about 7 hot real estate trends for the new normal. I want to say a little bit about Real Estate Connect because this is where I heard, all this information. And, Brad said, he described this economic crisis that we've been through. He's talking about it as being the great reshuffling. And Gary Keller called it the fast track of disruptions with 5 to 10 years of change taking place in 18 months. And that is a very short period of time. The great news about this is that you can really grow your business if you are paying attention to what's happening here. So the first one I want to talk about is what's happening with pricing. And Mike Del Prete is someone I really enjoy listening to. And what he said is that the economists have always looked at supply and demand. And we all know this, if you've got a high months of inventory and the market prices are going down, low months of inventory means, prices are going up. You got around 6 months of inventory, that's kind of the fulcrum point where it's kind of a balanced market. But what Mike said, and I've never heard anybody talk about this before, it's not about the closed sales, it's about what he calls high intent metrics. Specifically, when does a property come on the market and when does it pend or go under contract? So on the supply side, it's when it's listed and not when it closes, which is 90 days down the road, but when it goes under contract. And I have never heard anybody else put it like that, but I think that's really important takeaway as you go forward into this year is watching those two metrics to see what's going on in your market. And Greg, I imagine you've got a pretty good handle on those stats for your market, right?
Yeah, we've been definitely paying, close attention to those. And I think the way that he articulated that was actually incredibly good because a lot of folks just look at the sold prices, but when you look at the new market and the pending market and that time difference, that really tells the health of what you're dealing with in regards to your environment that you're working in. And I think that, more people should be taking a look at that kind of idea because a sold property is a very good indicator, but it's not a great indicator in regards to the health of the market because when a home is sold, it's done. It's not gonna do anything for a while, most likely. Now, but what we need to look like, what our clients are talking to us about is like, hey, how is the health of the market? What does the market look like? Where is the market going to be going? And you can take these stats and you say, well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer or Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is what, our new home count is. This is what our pending count is. That gap between the middle, that's what the general time frame is for you to get sold. So this is what your expectations should be. And I find it fascinating the way he looks at the market.
I've never heard anybody do it before, and I like the way you articulated that gap between those two numbers is how long you can expect your property to be on the market. I hadn't thought about it from that point of view, and I think that's a good takeaway, yes. Okay, number 2, the geographical migration chart is changing, and this comes from Tammy Bonell. She talked about this in a lot of detail. She's the CEO of Exit Realty. But here are some of the trends we're seeing. First of all, Greg, when we were prepping for today's show, you were saying you've been seeing a lot of articles about small towns being a massive opportunity. I'm seeing that across the board. What have you been reading?
I've been reading a ton about the fact that like the 20 greatest little hidden gems or the 15 best little cities, and obviously I'm in Northern California, whatever the article title is going to be. But I see a lot of folks pushing back against and that's not for everybody, so don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying what I'm reading is that folks are entertaining to the idea of, you know what, we love the big metropolitan areas, we love all the great food, we love culture, we love all of that, but for whatever reason, our lifestyle may have shifted a little bit, and we want to maybe make it adapt to the way life is. Our mind's going to change, and so they're looking for the, we're going to go talk to Bob the sheriff and Stacy at the diner, and we're going to know our neighbors Rebecca and Mike, and it's a different mindset, different culture, and I think people are craving, especially after COVID, I think people are literally physically craving personal interaction with another human being to an intimate level where people can actually know, care, and enjoy and respect the other person for whatever is important in their lives. And now it's not going to be the same for everybody, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is that you find what's important to you and yours, and go live your lifestyle, go live the best version of you. And that's what people are looking for, and that's what I'm seeing.
Well, for me, Greg, the community that we lived in before, we were kind of the odd people out because it was a community with people who had a lot of children who were in school, and we didn't. And we were just, we didn't have the connections there. We moved into where we are now. But what we're seeing, this revival of the burbs, we're about 25 or 30 minutes from Austin, but everything's self-contained here. Literally our city library is on the property. They just built a new police station literally 4 blocks from here. We've got a regional medical center here, Scott Baylor White. We've got Lake Travis. I mean, there's all this, great shopping, great opportunities, and it's all here. I don't have to go downtown Austin. I can if I want to, but, and that's what we're seeing is, kind of that happen. Also, one of the things is, the community that I was in, I had a McMansion. I'm so glad to be out of that, for the two of us. 4,700 square feet.
And it's a good looking house. You sent me a photo, but it's a good looking house.
Yeah, it was a good looking house, and I paid the price for that. Built in 2007, it went down. When I could get $100,000 out of an equity, I was out of there. So happy I moved. But we're seeing McMansions are making a comeback because, if you've got a family, you've got room for your kids. But then if you're working from home, a separate office that's not in the garage, or, some of the pictures I saw connect, there was somebody who had put their desk at the end of a hall, just a hallway. There was like a stairwell there. There was a little space.
That brings up a really good point. I was on a conversation last night with my good friend Stefan, and he and his family are making a move up north from California. And, he was showing me his new house, and in his current home in Paso Robles, his office is literally in the garage. Right, it says like this tiny little cubby hole that he shoves himself into, and he showed me his new, we're gonna call it a McMansion. It's a beautiful big home, views of the portrait sound or whatever you're gonna call it. And he has a beautiful downstairs office with lots of space, and I think that really is a trend that I'm seeing right now because people want a little more, bubble space.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you've been cooped up and you can't get out. So, and this is another, we're seeing another version of this trend with people, and I'm hearing a lot of, stories about, I've got friends who work in Tahoe, and they're saying they're seeing a lot of people coming in from the Bay Area to buy second homes there because they want to be able to drive to a vacation resort, not fly.
You know what? When I was growing up, my mom's side of the family has owned a cabin in Carmel Valley for, I think the last time I checked was like literally 150 years, no joke. And
Wow.
So when we were growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. And so instead of taking trips to Hawaii or Europe or Mexico or Canada or pick your location, we would drive 3 hours down to our cabin in Carmel, and we tucked away, and then we drive 3 hours back. And that was our version of vacations. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that's incredibly opportunistic in a great way, because Imagine if you want a long weekend or if you just want to get away for a week. You don't have to deal with airlines and travel and lines. It's just get the car filled up. Let's go. End of story.
And that's great. And then it's yours. You're not staying in a hotel. And again, with the
Wow.
health concerns and everything right now, and getting out of the suburban areas and into an area where there's, like I think of Tahoe is one of the most beautiful places on the earth. What a great shift, even if you do have to be in the city or in a suburban, an urban environment. Now, the other thing that's really interesting is this third shift is a shift in our living patterns.
Hmm.
And we're seeing some interesting things taking place in the rental side of the market. For millennials, it's been the Airbnb mindset. Let's go have an experience somewhere. I don't want to be tied down with stuff, and I'd rather spend it on a trip. And now that has done a 180 from what we're hearing. And this is an early trend, but I think it's still happening. They're letting go of their Airbnb mindset and they're moving to a single family, ownership, because they realize that, living in 600, 800 square feet in a loft downtown, and you're there for 3 or 4 months and you can't get out, and all the restaurants and everything are closed. No, this is not a pretty picture.
No, you're going to lose your marbles. I mean, personally, I mean, I know for my fact, I have my condo here, and when I walk downtown, it's my way to get out. And I'm just about 1,000 square feet in my property right now, and it works perfectly for my lifestyle. But if I had wife and kids in this small environment, but we told ourselves that we're going to travel a lot more, and that was going to be our lifestyle, that's a great way of thinking about things. But when the rubber meets the road and you're like, holy macaroni, man, like we need more space. I I I can't wait to see where that's going to go, because it's interesting to see the way the human brain operates and says, you know what, I'm locked in here. I thought this was going to be enough. It's not enough. So what's the next move? So us agents, I think we should keep our eyes open and be very attuned to renters, small property owners. What are they going to do? Are they going to come together? Are they going to buy multiple different properties on one lot? Are they going to buy one large thing, put people into them? I don't know. It's going to be the Wild West, and it's just fascinating to see which way everything's going to go.
Well, this is one of the other trends that I want to pick up on, and I want to circle back to the shift in living patterns, because it actually does fall under this particular category. Is there were a number of people who reported at Connect that they are seeing now, let's say that my sister and I own we each have our own family home, and then we've got our parents, and we're seeing people going there. What they're seeing is that they're selling those 3 properties, consolidating into one large property. Now you're working on a very large deal right now that, that you're having this literally happen as we speak.
We are. It's a $5 million property, 5 acres, and what we're seeing is very fascinating. Is the fact that the buyer is going to be buying the back lot for his own family. He sold his family. It's going to be a beautiful piece of property when they get it developed. But then they have their brother-in-law buying the lot next door. Then they're going to sell the B lot, which is where the actual home is now. And then they're going to sell the front lot to another family friend, and they're going to build their family compound. And it's incredible, because it wasn't hard for the other agent to get these people to jump on board, because they love the idea of being close to friends and family that they actually want to spend time with, and invest into real estate, instead of like having to drive here and there to see each other. It's like, hey, we're just going to walk a block over. Let's go hang out.
And that's one of the things I love about, my community here, is my friends are all walking distance. So, all these people here that I know. One of the other issues that Matthew Gardner raised, as well as Skylar Olson, who's the senior principal economist at Zillow, is when they did their session on what's happening economically, it was really interesting, because they talked about what's going on at the Fed and the way the spreads were working with the interest rates. And I've never really followed that well, but the bottom line is what they're predicting for 2021, rates could be as low as 2.5%.
Wow.
So this could have huge implications for affordability. And I think it's going to support higher prices because people can afford to buy more. And then we're going to see, there's this grand reshuffling going on, is what Brad referenced, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that, we're getting people selling, smaller things, going to larger homes, people selling larger homes, shifting into something that's more suited for them, or getting out of the city into the country or rural areas. So we have a big series of shifts coming here that's going to bode well for us in the industry, because a lot of people are going to be selling.
A lot of people are talking, and I've been asked by clients and past clients and friends and family multiple times, like, well, Greg, how's the market? And they're expecting me to say, well, it's horrible. I mean, it's absolutely in the dumps. I mean, there's nothing is going on. In reality, I turn back to them, I say, it's actually more on fire than I've seen it in a long time. It has to do a lot with the rates, and it also has to do with people just reshuffling their lifestyles, like you were just talking about. Like, do I need this 9,000 square foot house? Or do I need this 200 square foot micro condo? Where's my lifestyle going to lead? What's going to make me happier? And when I tell them that the market is literally in fuego and it's just not slowing down whatsoever, they kind of get this puzzled look on their face, like, oh, okay, so what does that mean for me? And that's what the conversation starts to take off. And I just say, what would you like it to look like? What are your goals? What are your expectations? Do you want to go bigger? Do you want to go smaller? Do you want to go wider? Do you want to go, thinner? I mean, what does your life want to look like? And that, in like what you and I have talked about multiple times in different conversations, you just ask the questions and you let them talk about it, and it brings out their inner wants, desires, and needs, and then you facilitate it as the realtor. And it's actually one of the most gratifying and satisfying things I've done in a long time, to look at someone dead in the eye and say, so where would you like to land? What would that look like? And then they say it, I'm like, okay, order up, let's go. And
Yeah.
ding fries.
Now let's shift gears a little bit. Okay, these next two trends, very interesting. This one is office consolidation. And one of the things we've seen, I know this is, if there is a downturn here, I've seen 4 of them. If there is one here, we're going to be number 5 for me. It'll be number 3 for you.
Yep.
But what happens is, in terms of, if you own a brokerage, it's your title and escrow / closing services that keep your title and mortgage, that keep your company afloat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been that way. And it's why there's so much competition among places like Zillow and Realtor and the companies to be the first one to get the client, because they want to get that mortgage business and the title business, because that's where there's serious profit. But there's been a trend for the one-stop shop, and that, as Gary Keller said, we've got 18, in 18 months, we'll have 5 to 10 years of change taking place. But this is one of the big trends. He's pushed for that in his company. We're seeing the other companies have, they've always had these ancillary services. But what's happening now, the people who, consumers want a complete experience from the time that, customer for life, that's been out there for many years, but now it's going to be more important than ever. One of the most fascinating things I heard came from Tammy Bonell, who's the CEO of Exit Real Estate. And what Tammy said is 79% of the brokerages have 6 or fewer agents. I mean, there are a whole lot of people who hold, their brokerage and they're single, they're sole practitioner, but 6 or fewer. So she sees a lot of mergers and acquisitions coming as well. And what we're seeing, of course, and this, we've seen this trend where teams right now are becoming boutique brokerages, or we're also seeing another trend where small brokerages are moving into models like, Keller's model or EXP or any of these brokerages where you can run a team under the rubric of that brokerage and essentially function like you're a small brokerage in that particular company. And, Side's another great example. New company that focuses on serving teams. So these trends are only going to be more pronounced as we go forward because of all the changes that have taken place. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and I love this quote, and I don't remember who made it, but cash flow is the oxygen of business.
So true. So
And
true.
what's Leslie Appleton Young, who's the chief economist for the California Association of Realtors, said that based upon CAR's work, that 39% of their brokers plan on reducing their footprint. And get this number, Greg, 63% will not be renewing their leases.
Um,
At least one of their leases. So,
that's
you know, if they have multiple offices, so there's that office consolidation trend again.
you know, that's a when you, I mean, you hear 63%, right? And you say, okay, it's 63%. That's a big number, but it's not really that big. It's not 100%, right? But at the exact same time, think about the ramifications that that's going to have in the industry and the way we operate. That is a monstrous amount of real estate that is not going to have another lease signed on. I mean, one of my past brokerages, I found out that they were paying, what was it, like I think it was $56,000 a month for one location. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, holy macaroni, are you kidding me? Now, of course, I'm not in the commercial space, so that's probably normal. But that's a huge amount of money. That's over $100,000 in 2 months that they can save by not renewing, and they can put it back into marketing. They can put it back into agent development. They can put it back into training. They can put it back into growing their business and recruiting. I, I don't fault them, and I think that's actually a very wise move based upon the way that we all are operating right now.
Well, you know, what the pandemic has forced, of course, is that, you know, everybody's become accustomed to working virtually, whether they liked it or not. If you were going to be doing business, I mean, if you're going to curl up in a ball and not do anything, but, you know, the rest of us have been out there, you know, working to get our businesses done. So I think this is really important. You're going to see the, you know, the term, I like to use the term, the agent palaces, you know, these great big fancy buildings in prime locations with really luxurious surroundings and everything. You're going to see a downsizing in that. And I remember back in 1995, you know, the guys who are running my company were talking about the office of the future when you could plug in a computer to, you know, they're in the office and you know, you didn't have assigned desks. They were talking about that 25 years ago. So it's really pretty amazing. And it's come to pass. So it's interesting to see, you know, we had some very visionary people at Douglas that were, you know, they saw what was coming. So I'm not here to see it, but this is, you know, it's fascinating.
I love it when it makes me think of like the Jetsons or something like that, like the office of the future, where you can plug in your computer and then pick it up and leave. And you're like, now you're sitting there like, what the heck, man? Like, that's my laptop, my tablet, my smartphone. I mean, what are you talking about?
It's not a big deal today, but back then, before there were any mobile devices, you know, pretty visionary.
Very
Now, there's something about cash flow. Greg, you had a personal experience because you left a traditional brokerage.
Yeah.
And you went to a brokerage that essentially lets you operate as a team and virtually. What happened? You know, how much did that save you?
Well, ultimately, it was a metric ton of money. But when we went back and after we moved over to where our current brokerage is, and we got to see that we're working virtually on a consistent basis, what we found out was, you know, a very short order amount of time, is that, no joke, guys, when you hear this number, we saved $46,000 a year immediately by just eliminating our rent. And I don't know about you, Bernice, that is the most expensive free coffee I have ever drank in my entire life.
Now, you were paying for, were you essentially doing a rent-a-desk situation in your previous brokerage?
Yep, we rented our office. It was a nice, big, private, quiet office. And to their credit, you know, we got to pick it and we got to, you know, decorate it and all of that. But then we also had our split on top of that, and then we had our fees on top of that, and we're just like, ay, like, that's a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
And we put it back
that
into our
model,
business.
I think, is like done or very close to it.
I think it is as well. And one of the senior management in that company looked us straight in the eye on the day that we were gracefully exiting out the back door, because that's where we had to leave. They said, well, your new model will never work, and this is the only model that will work. you have to come into the office, you got to do this. And for a lot of folks, if that's what works for you, dude, 2 thumbs up. I'm super pumped for you. But in reality, does it really need to work that way? And that's just a question, because think about the capital you're saving. Could you put it into your kids' school funds? Could you, take your wife, your husband, your partner, your significant other out on more dates? Could you put more branding, marketing, training into your business? Or could you reallocate that capital to better your lifestyle? And that's the question that I don't think a lot of people have asked, because they just took it as the norm. Like, I got to go to the office. I got to do this.
Yeah, $46,000 a year over 10 years. That's $460,000 towards my retirement or towards my kids' college education. It's a huge amount of money. So I think that, what's happening here is reallocation, repurposing, and saying, where are my dollars best spent? This comes back to, it's all about cash flow. Mm-hmm. So what people are doing now, they're saying, where can I cut? I want to spend on things that are going to give results, and I'm getting rid of things that I don't need. And I'd like to encourage anybody who's listening to this, go look at your credit card bills each month. Are you paying for something that you're not using? Get rid of it.
I actually had my credit card stolen, and so my bank had to give me a new one. And I'm like, oh, this is such a pain in the rear end. But then I'm like, wait a minute, this is the greatest opportunity on earth. I can see where I'm spending all this money that I didn't know I was spending. And Bernice, I am not joking. I have 10 different things that I did not know I was spending money on. Because it's just one of those things that's such a small amount of money. It just kept flowing out.
That's the $29.95 a month. It's only $29.95 a month. And if you have 10 of those, that's $300 a month. That's $3,600.
That's a lot of money that you just kind of take it as normal and just flows out of your bank account. And you're like, why don't I have more money? And so I think what you're suggesting is a phenomenal idea. Go in and check your bank statement, see what you're spending on. I had a guy I listened to a while back, and he said that every 2 years, he reports his credit cards as all stolen, watches where the reoccurring payments come up, and then eliminates them every 2 years. And I'm like, that's really genius. I like this idea.
Well, the thing that does is it prevents the automatic renewals, which is an interesting. I don't know that I want to go through having to get new credit cards. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But, when you think about it, though, how many services do you have that are on auto renewal?
Exactly.
And if your credit cards, mine, you have 4 and 5 year expirations on some of them, So, Greg, to wrap up for today, final takeaway from your perspective. You're out there in the field. What are you seeing? Final takeaway for today.
My personal final takeaway after this discussion and what we've worked on in this article and everything else is the fact that, look, there's a lot of raw nerves that are taking place right now because people are uncertain on kind of what this is going to look like, because we're not in the norm, air quotes, norm. This is the new normal, which I don't understand how that phrase works. But what I do understand is that this is an opportunity for you as an individual, you as a business person, you as a spouse, a partner, a parent, a lover, anything else. This is an opportunity for you to look and go, did I need everything that I had before? And if you do, cool. If you don't, readjust your life that's going to fit your best version of you and have zero apologies for it. Because at the end of the day, when you're sitting in the rocking chair at 80 years old and you're going to be like, man, I really wish I should have stayed at blah, blah, blah. Or you said, you know what, I'm really glad I pivoted and I made an adjustment in my life. And you know what, these last X amount of years of my life, my business, my career, whatever else, have been marvelous because I made a decision for me. So go out there, make a decision for you, the best version of you, the best version of your family, the best version of your business, and say thank you to what's going on around us, because none of us wanted it, but I think we all can benefit from it. Bernice, what are your final thoughts?
I'm just going to end it right there because I think that's a great way to end. I don't see what I could add on top of it. Thank you for being with us this week. This week. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks for joining us for Real Estate Coach Uncensored on Inman News. Be sure to tune in for our next show when we'll be back to share even more ways you can grow your real estate business. For the latest news and analysis, check out the other great stories today on Inman News.